From the provisional balloting component, just the cost to set up the system, roughly $3 million, and then the rest is local cost. If provisional balloting is $500,000 or more, it would be a different cost than if it was, $800,000 or $900,000. But our cost is $3 million for the system, and that includes the building in of the tracking procedure, that kind of stuff.
I just want to talk about one thing that will occur should this amendment be adopted, and that is this provisional voting process, about the cost that will occur at the local level. And if I can just use Ramsey County as an example, that to have effectively what will become a parallel voting process occurring in every polling place, we presume will require 2 additional election judges who will be of different parties. We'll have a whole set of different envelopes, et cetera, and then a process to count all these provisional ballots, which we assume at this point will be about 1% of our total number of ballots that we get will be provisional, and we think we will end up counting about half of those. But just here in Ramsey County, our biennial cost just for that activity will be about $150,000. Typically, we're about 10% of the state's cost, so you can kind of do the math on the cost of that. And that, of course, will all come out of the levy, unless the legislature does something which it has not done in the past, and that is pass appropriations to cover our administrative costs. Those costs will all come out of our property tax levy.
In order to make provisional balloting work, the voter has to have a time period where they can come back and prove their identity. Because most townships do not have business hours, we would have to create business hours for some period of time, whether it's the 3 days, 10 days, whatever the legislature were to decide. Again, we took a very conservative $10 per hour for clerk pay. I think that is a very conservative estimate, but building that in, you could be looking at paying your clerk somewhere between $90 to $300 extra for that alone. Then if a ballot is cast, you've got to bring in the election judges and process them. Again, when and how often will depend on the legislation you pass, but if we look at last year's bill, that could be a nightly occurrence, and so you could be having several $100s of cost. Although there is a great deal of unknown, I feel it's my obligation to let our members know if you want to be ready, if you want to plan ahead, you're going to need a budget, probably a minimum of an extra $1,000 and maybe over $2,500 per township per March election. We're not, and that could end up being a cost of $1.2 to $3.1 million statewide for the 1,200 and some townships currently doing March elections. Many of these costs would be duplicated for November elections when you have to, but it's a little harder to judge our share of that expense because there's so much commingling with the counties in running a state election. But again, we want to get these numbers out here to show what we have to plan for, what we have to budget for, particularly with the 2013 implementation dates. We have to do something now, not knowing all the details that could come later.